stay at home. There's no need to go anywhere. Unplug the things you used to hide yourself away. It is time to return to what we knew. It is time to make time for me and you.
So my first ever guest is someone whose music I'm very familiar with, and full disclosure, know very well as both a former band member and one of my closest friends. She's a veteran of the Philadelphia 1980s rock scene and currently a Philadelphia public school teacher and a leader in the Philadelphia Area Songwriters Alliance. But in addition, she's in the band CubiZm, which plays all over the Philadelphia area and has recently released the album Grays in the Rain. And I first heard her music 40 years ago, and when I caught her show at the Painted Bride in 1980, I became hooked. I'd never seen a songwriter so captivate an audience strictly on the strength of her songwriting and her ability to connect with an audience. So welcome, Heidi Wolfson, to the first ever Songwriter Talk. You ready to begin?
Hi, Rob.
Hey. So, first of all, your name.
So, I am Heidi Wolfson, and I am Heidi Hoskins. And the reason that I keep Heidi Wolfson for all of my music endeavors is that I was Heidi Wolfson when I first started making music. That part of my identity is very much Heidi Wolfson. I became Heidi Hoskins when I got sober, got married, had kids, became a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of my life, it's a good part of my life, is Heidi Hoskins. But the music is really core, and it's been with me forever.
Absolutely.
Just like my original last name.
Yep. So we're gonna talk more about Heidi Wolfson today. And Heidi Wolfson, I first met way back in about 40 years back. I first saw you in surrounded by an entire group of people. You were sitting in the middle of a lawn on campus, Temple University, playing your guitar. And I remember you were playing Oh Susanna, but I know you were writing songs from very early on. So tell me about your first experience with music and maybe the first time you began writing songs.
So it's funny that you bring up Oh Susanna, because that was off of the album Sweet Baby James by James Taylor. James Taylor did a very bluesy version of Oh Susanna.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first album I owned. And the acoustic guitar on that album just woke something up in me. The way he played acoustic guitar. The album was not very very thickly produced. It was, a lot of it was just him and the guitar. And you could really hear those beautiful guitar licks. And I had always loved music, and I loved rock music, and I loved pop music, but I had never really heard somebody play with just a guitar before.
Right. And would it be fair to say that in your early years, you were more kind of rock oriented? You weren't necessarily, somebody wouldn't compare you to James Taylor. More recently, you become more of an intricate guitar player, but early on you had some other influences as well that are still there.
Yeah, so I've always had a range of what I do, and people know me more for the harder rock stuff because I think that's what I do best. But I've always written all kinds of songs, even songs that were just like sparse finger picking, and I've always written slow, sad songs and a little bluesy songs and ballad songs. Like, my influences have always come out, but I think I am at my best when I just let go. I was a pretty scrappy kid. The first couple years I played guitar, I didn't own one.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Bummer.
befriended people and asked to play their guitars and asked them to show me things. I knew I wanted to play. It took me about 2 years to gather up money to buy a guitar. And when I finally did, the way that I learned to play is I just walked around with it. I carried it everywhere, whether I was going to play or not. I would drag it with me. I'd commute to Temple. I took the guitar with me all day, every day, to every class, on the off chance that somebody would say, "Hey, do you play?" And I'd say, as a matter of fact. Some days that wouldn't happen, but I carry it around anyway. And I met Dave Isaacson on the Temple campus as well. He used to work in a bagel truck.
I remember.
And I
Good
came
night.
up to buy a bagel from him, and I was holding a guitar. And he said, "Do you play?" And I said, "Yes, as a matter of fact." And we kind of became friends. And I had been playing a bunch of open mics for about 3 years. I've been playing places like the London and the Painted Bride and all the places that I could. And I had this notion that I wanted to start a band, but I had no resources. All I had was me walking around with the guitar and these original songs that I had no real way to present them. So I invited Dave and you and a bunch of other people that I wanted to play with to a show that I was doing at the Painted Bride. And before the show, like, people were skeptical. My music was raw. Didn't always sing in a pretty way, but by the end of the show, every musician that I invited was coming up to me saying, "Sign me up, sign me up." And that was the night. That was November of 1980. And Heidi and the Wolf started pretty much after that.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a packed house, and you just commanded the audience. You were connecting. Your songs were so vivid and real, and you just wrote with a higher level of honesty and poetry than anybody else around. And you're able to just kind of do it with a lot of energy and intensity as well.
Yeah, that honesty has always been really important to me.
Yeah.
I feel like even more than playing music and crafting my musicianship, I have something to say. And like getting back to like Sweet Baby James, it just changed my life when I heard the song Fire and Rain, and it started out with "Just yesterday morning they let me know you were gone." It struck me automatically as, this is really honest and it's really sad, and I feel like I'm going to cry. And I didn't really know music could do that, and basically all my life I've written hundreds of songs. I've been telling my own story.
Yeah. Some of your songs from that time, they not only had a different kind of influences, like, Shadow, Blue Again, So Much to Give, Petrol Pig, but they also told different parts of your story. So, one is political, one is very much in your face, another one is kind of a feminist song. I know they're old songs of yours now, but basically, is there anything you want to talk about in terms of some of the early songs of the period? A
So
lot of shouting. I mean, you have to be honest. You were a shouter, but you were
I
also,
was a shouter.
but yeah, and you were, you would get people's attention one way or the other. But very often it was both a combination of your presence and your words, and not necessarily the intricate musicianship which you've now developed over the years. But back then, some of those songs, you still hear them today, and they're pretty strong songs. Anything you want to say about any of them at this point?
So there's a bunch of themes, and I'm still writing variations of the same themes in some ways. And you just named a few of the different themes. One of the themes that has always been important for me, even when I was too young to really know the full picture, was like sexual politics. And in the early 1980s, I knew what I didn't want. I'd grown up in a house where my mother was being abused, I was being abused. I had had a lot of experiences with men that were unpleasant, and I was just noticing in the world where women were, and getting a very clear idea of what I did not want. I didn't know what I did want, but I knew what I didn't want. And a lot of the songs that I was writing were about the balance of power between men and women.
One of my favorite lines in So Much to Give, and I still remember it to this day, she's pregnant with beauty, waiting to be born. The more she releases it, the more she is torn. That's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting, it always intrigued me. I never quite knew whether you were talking about one particular person, but I always felt like you're talking about women in general and the balance between being yourself and trying to, maintain, I guess, a certain level of
And
power.
and the double edge that comes with, at that time for me, feeling like a pretty woman. There were two sides to that, and it meant constantly being harassed. I was on the street a lot. I was a street kid, and it meant being in situations I didn't want to be in. And there's another, and also there's a line in that song, the chorus, all you have to do,
Just stand there and smile.
stand there and smile and push her away every once in a while. She'll keep on coming to you, she'll keep on coming to you, she'll keep on coming to you, and there is so little that you must do. I have been a part of and seen a lot of situations where men don't appreciate women, don't respect them. They want them, but they don't respect them.
Right.
And I had a lot of songs about that, then and now.
Right. Your songs don't feel like sad, but that because of the kind of spirit within them. But like a song like Blue Again, obviously, that's a pretty dark song, but it yet kind of had almost Janis Joplin feel to it, but it was still,
Yes.
that was one of the few songs that really did feel like there was a lot of real sadness there, obviously Blue Again. Is there anything about that song? That song always fascinated me because of just the intensity of it.
Well, sometimes images come out in a song, and I don't really know what they're about until years later.
Right.
The images come out, and an image that came out in that song is the neon bottle calls me as I walk by. And I was drinking a lot. I was drinking pretty much every day. And I think that there was something chaotic in that song about trying to live a life and have love and have people and have a relationship, but there's this self-destructive edge that keeps on doing it all.
You took it from me and smiled at me, now you understand. As a bartender took the money from my hand. Baby, you see, there's something in the world stopping us from getting it together. Something keeping us from being where we want to be. Maybe the world's too polluted and were too clean. Maybe the world's too crazy and we're too sane. But whatever it is that's got us, it looks like they win. 'Cause we're just not equipped to play with this pain. Oh, love has left me blue again. Love, 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 make me new. Love, make me new.
And I think some of that, it's funny that you bring up Janis Joplin.
And you had that level of energy. I mean, obviously, Patti Smith is the performer you're most compared to. And I think, in fairness to you, and particularly what you were saying earlier in the interview, you had that soft side. So you have a lot of Joni Mitchell influences, clearly. If somebody asked me to describe you, I always said Patti Smith and Joni Mitchell. But early on, when you were young, you had that energy, in particular with Janis Joplin. And, I don't know if people want to compare or be compared, but I mean, those are, people haven't heard you yet. I don't think they'd immediately say Janis Joplin now, but they might still say Patti Smith or.
And I also had to work within the limits of my voice and the limits of my vocal range and what my voice could do. And I have a very low voice. I don't have a voice like Joni Mitchell,
Right.
so I've had to work until recently, until the last 10 years or so. I haven't really known how to get the most out of my voice. So I think one of the things that I did wrong at that time is I pushed my voice.
Right. And the Joni that I hear in you isn't in your singing. It's in obviously it's both the literary aspects of your writing, but also you've been doing a lot of alternate tunings, a lot of very unusual kind of melodic and choral structures the last 10 years. And we're kind of skipping around now a little bit, more of your newer stuff. You obviously have a middle period as well. But would you say that, Joni probably has influenced you from the beginning, but now that you've developed your guitar playing, you might be able to kind of realize a little bit more of that part of you?
Yes. Joni has always touched me, and one of the things I most respect about her is that she never stayed still. She didn't tour a lot either, but she never stayed still. She tried with every album to not only didn't she play the same old stuff, but she didn't even play in the same style for more than a year or two. She just kept moving and developing. And for her, it was really, really about the writing more than the performing. And she had things that were a little inaccessible, jazzier albums that a lot of people have never heard. My favorite album is the Shadows and Light album, where she has all those wonderful jazz musicians playing with her.
Yeah. Dr.
But
Picard, yeah.
but Joni also talks about herself. Her songs are all about her and about what she's feeling, but they're also about love in a general way, and religion and spirituality and people. And she has a real visual, she has a painter's eye.
Fiona says that she never lands on love. I think that is very sad. I have so much love she can have.
you know, that all the feelings she conveys them through images. And I try to do that in my songs as well, rather than say I feel a certain way. I mean, that's the key to good writing. I also teach writing.
Right.
And the show don't tell is the key to good writing. Nobody wants to hear that, you know, I'm so sad there's tears coming out of my eyes.
Right. So you have that whole piece of your writing that is very vivid and lyrically, and you know, and again, the music has become more delicate and intricate over the years. But you also have this whole other part where you call it ranting. I mean, that obviously that part doesn't come from the Joni Mitchell influence. Where did that first get born? And I know you've developed over the year, but what was the beginnings of that?
Okay, so my two biggest influences in terms of performing, Patti Smith, Mick Jagger.
Okay.
And there's parts of me all my life that I just kind of believe I'm Mick Jagger. And I know it's...
Well, you don't look like Mick Jagger, sorry.
No, but I just always felt like Mick Jagger. Like I don't know, it was my inflated alcoholic ego.
You know, it's not as strange as you think either. The Mick Jagger says that when he's on stage, he pretends he's Tina Turner. That's where he got his influence. He says that his strut came from Tina Turner. So in a way, you're going, it's really a female energy that's in Mick Jagger, if you think about that.
So that big energy of mine started with Heidi and the Wolf, where we were doing, back to Heidi and the Wolf, we were doing, so Heidi and the Wolf was Dave Isaacson on drums, Mike Doherty on bass, I was playing rhythm guitar and singing, very hot, sexy, rip-roaring lead guitarist. I don't even know how to
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the two women.
That's what I was talking about you. No, I was talking about
No.
Chomsky.
The men came to see the women, and the women came to see the men, and sometimes that's not true.
So the four of us were like the core of it.
Yeah,
You know, Tom Lukomsky on lead guitar.
right.
And then you played violin and did a little singing.
Right.
And then we got Lori Temple, who is now Lori Kramer. And she gave the band a whole other dynamic. First of all, she could really sing. She just had this beautiful voice. And the two of us would play off of each other.
Yeah.
And we used to love to do that. We had a lot of fun on stage together. And so
I just realized there might have been sexual tension in that band. I just thought of that. It never really occurred to me, but
oh yeah,
probably in about 5 different directions at once, actually.
yeah, there was some energy flying around.
Yeah.
Talking, it's such a bore. Talk with your fingers, talk with your heart. Save your words for someone who's not as smart. You say that you love me, well that's just fine. But saying it is not what I had in mind. I got fire in my soul to make me keep it under control. I wanna let it out, let it burn. You say you can do it, well, here's your turn. You've been such a man for your whole life. Come on, baby, don't make me my soul to make me keep it under control. I wanna let it out, let it burn. You say you can do it, well, here's your turn.
But the thing is that there was an energy. You know, when I listened to Heidi and the Wolf, there was this undeniable energy about it. You know, and when we would do these rock ballads, and we did like, I think my ranting started to come out a little bit with Heidi and the Wolf. We did a song called Crazy Too. And I started to ad lib on stage.
That's right.
You know, it was this kind of, I don't even remember the rants that I used to sing with Crazy Too, but there was this ad libbing at the end. I can do whatever I want. I can do anything better than you because I'm crazy too. I can kill the president. I believe in Jesus. I'm just crazy about him. I'll talk to you about it till you jump out of your skin. There was just like, it was this barrage of words. And there was a couple songs that I did that on that I said, "Ooh, that's good. That's good." You know, and I didn't do it that often, but I held on to it. And it wasn't until years later when I met Art Cohen that I learned how to channel that.
So yeah, we could talk a bit about you know, kind of jumping forward, and obviously you've been doing you've done 4 recorded projects with Art Cohen and Steve Lessig, your other member of CubiZm.
Now,
Yeah.
okay,
Let's
so
start with
Art Cohen,
your first project, yeah, with Art
yeah,
Cohen and Steve.
you got Art Cohen and I together in 1994, I believe, somewhere around there. And Art Cohen and I clicked right away, right away. It's like he, more than any other person I ever met, completely understood. He understood what I wanted to do more than I did. You know, and we made that album, Maiden Calls, and that album was full of poetic rants. It was my loosest self. You know, there was, even the songs that weren't rants had rants in them. And he just inspired me to keep going, you know, keep going, because that's how he played guitar. Like he would just take everything to the next level. And we inspired each other that way. We did a song called Thousand Year Itch, which is on the Maiden Calls album. It was the first time I ever just started ranting poetry against electric guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some magic. There was some magic there.
Taxidermy, stuff that hero with baby limbs. His picture on the cover of Time and Newsweek, saying they're gonna show some other side of him, the side his mommy knows. Filled with higher ideas, the love of family and people, ideas stronger than my America. In the farmlands there are bunkers bursting with guns, just dying to turn these McDonald land playgrounds into third world revolutionary hell.
And we still, on every album, we have a song like that. You know, we have a few of those that we do.
Yep.
And some of my rock songs have ranting in them. So it's, and when I say ranting, I don't mean ranting in a way that doesn't make sense. I mean ranting
Right.
in a way that really, really does make sense.
Right. It's not necessarily anger either by ranting.
No, it's not.
You're riffing off a theme that has to do with a particular subject depending on the song. I know I've seen you, and you've been able to develop that with other people's songs as well. You did a great cover of one of my songs, and you just came up with a whole thing that extended it. So it's really kind of an extension to some degree.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, it's like beat poetry. That it has to do with association, with word association, and jumping from word association to the next, and staying with images, and then bringing them back again.
So staying, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, staying because we just stay a little longer on this album. You know, you were exploring some topics that are not necessarily like in the early. You've always been exploring kind of sexual politics. You also dealt with some other interesting aspects of various things in mating calls. Is there anything else that on that particular album that you want to talk about before I'm going to move you more in the future?
So Maiden Calls, the theme of it was sexual politics, and that's why it's called Maiden Calls. And there are songs on there that are very explicit. Sex Test. Sex Test is a structure of poetry called a canzone, and it has to do with a pattern of repetition, how words would repeat. So I wrote Sex Test as a poem, and then Art helped me set it to music, and it was about the struggle for power in a sexual relationship. And there's some funny lines in there, I think. I think they're funny. You and I have always talked about this, how I don't really write funny songs, but I feel like every once in a while I come up with funny lines because they're true. You know, and people hear something and they say, oh, that's really true. I was graded F for fearless in the test, and I have developed a fear of sex and tests. Like it, there's just some funny lines in there. I've learned that removing my clothing is one sure way to flunk the test. And it just goes on and on and on, and the words are repeated. In and out and in and out and in and out of pain is what you get. Or it's what you can expect. Expect was one of the words. There's 5 end words, and they all repeat. So I make these little jokes, and sometimes they're so subtle that only I get them.
Well, it took me 30 years to figure out what tries buys means, okay, what that song's about. And there's a very interesting cover of it by Neil Phillips, who's a very beautiful, singer, player. So it's very interesting to hear a lot of your songs covered. They sound very different and just totally bring a whole other aspect to your material.
Tries, buys, all a plot, solely devised as far as purpose goes to lead us to the belief of the ultimate excitement. Tries, buys, exquisite lies, I'm a woman made from man since time began. Took a rib from Adam, who stole his soul from Eve. Believe, 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 believe. Tries, buys, oh those pretty girl thighs, my beauty escaping in little pieces, coming back to me in different releases. Tries, buys, we multiply, and I jump into the river of your eyes, DNA swimming in every side. Boys and girls are the very same thing, everybody's velvet when it comes to skin. Believe, 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 believe.
Tries, buys, all applied, so they devise as far as purpose goes to lead us to the belief of the ultimate excitement. Tries, buys, exquisite lies, I'm a woman made for man since time began. Took a rib from Adam, who stole his soul from Eve. Believe, 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 believe. Tries, buys, all those pretty girl thighs, my beauty escaping in little pieces, coming back to me in different releases. Tries, buys, we multiply, and I jump into the river of your eyes. DNA swimming in every side. Boys and girls are the very same thing. Everybody's velvet when it comes to skin. Believe, believe.
Can we talk about CubiZm?
We're ready to talk about CubiZm. In a way, Mating Calls was the first CubiZm album because
Yes,
Steve
we
Lessig was
brought
there as well.
Steve Lessig in, and Steve Lessig was playing drums, and we were all together in the 1990s. And Steve Lessig would play with us every once in a while, and he played on that whole album. But it wasn't until about 10 years later or so that we really started to come together as a band. And so CubiZm is Heidi Wolfson, Art Cohen, and Steve Lessig. And if anybody has ever heard Steve Lessig, he is an amazing percussionist and he's an amazing singer.
Yeah.
And he's been a gift in my life because in these last 10 years, he has really taught me how to sing. And I feel like I have the power now to express things that I could never express before because I'm writing even better songs and they're more accessible because my singing is so much better. And every rehearsal with Steve Lessig is like a singing lesson for me.
Yeah, and he's also a really good arranger as well. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things.
And one of the things that CubiZm has that Heidi and the Wolf, well, we had harmonies. Certainly Laurie was really good at that, but it's a fuller singing. It's a lot of different harmonies, and I'm writing differently now. I'm writing sparser.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing the guitar much sparser, and I'm leaving a lot of space in the music because I'm no longer writing for myself as a singer-songwriter. I'm writing for a band, which is a different kind of writing. And if you listen to any song on Graze in the Rain, you will notice this does not sound like Heidi Wolfson with a backup band. This is a band with a band sound, a cohesive band sound, and these songs were written as a band. I bring them in raw, and they go through the CubiZm machine in terms of like arrangement and musical ideas. You know, I have limited musical knowledge, and art is always coming in saying, that's a little boring. So he always wants to say, try a key change here, or he will do something to make it more interesting. And Steve will do something to make it more polished. And Steve will do something. So he even has me singing harmonies.
Yeah, and your singing is clearly developed along with your playing over the years. It shows not only the importance of being able to work with people that understand your own music and are also at a high skill level, and that's a lesson for all songwriters. There's some advantages there when you really are willing to, but you have to do the give and take as well to often get the full value of who you're working with. It's interesting. It makes me think a little bit more as we talk about the band, performing like, with places that you've been performing. But maybe before we get into that, you have, I guess your next album, you did have an album called Imprinting, right?
That was a solo album, yes. And that solo album, Imprinting, really shows my most Joni Mitchell-ish kind of influences. Every song in that album is in a different open tuning.
Yeah.
And that was my experimental, and I'm proud of that album because it's all my guitar work. It's not art playing, it's really me playing. So I like that album.
Yeah, there's a lot of very, very good songs. Oftentimes you write about your family. My Boy, I remember that song is on that album. And it takes a lot of courage as a songwriter to write, about the things around you, the people that you know, and sometimes you don't even hide who they are, and sometimes you do, as most songwriters do. But in that case, I'm curious, how did Evan respond to that song? Is he?
He doesn't like that song, I don't think.
Yeah, generally, especially if they're grown.
But there's other songs that I've written about Evan that he does like.
Yeah. So you have all of these.
There's a line about Evan in the Invisible Now album. The song "My Moment of Brilliance." So there is a line about Evan, and now I have me some brilliant children, and I can brag all day about things I didn't do.
Yeah.
And know that they made my dreams come true, and that Evan is really Tolstoy. He'll have some decades of brilliance, that boy. So
how could you not like that line? Yeah. It's interesting. It is a great joy to be able to have one or more of your children,
I have songs about all of them.
Yeah, I know, and they probably do as well. But I would say that making a different point is that having a kid that is also a singer-songwriter, and he's very good. We'll interview him. I'm going to interview him at some point, so we don't need to plug him, but we'll interview him at some point. But he's very, very unique songwriter. And again, one of the things that he and you have in common, besides great literary ability and energy, is you do your own thing. You don't copy. You've never been a copier, and he's not a copier. I mean, you have your influences, but you can sound completely different than everybody else out there.
Yes.
But you sound completely different than he does from each other. You don't sound alike, but you both are in a different. So now that I've done that tongue twister, we get back to your album. So you did Imprinting, and then you had your first official CubiZm album, and that was.
So we were just coming into our own as a band there. Invisible Now, which is about really a line from a song. It's not a title from the song. The song is called Midlife Crisis. And the song is about to go from being such a flamboyant character who's always noticed to go to somebody to becoming someone who is completely invisible. And I guess that's just part of the aging process, but I do feel completely invisible. And there's a lot of funny lines in that song that people can relate to. But You know, I used to be this and I used to be that, and I'm invisible now. And I think our band was coming into its own then, but we still hadn't reached our full sound yet, because Steve isn't a full third of the sound on that album. He's playing drums and he's singing some background vocals, but it was still more or less about me and my songs. It wasn't until Grays in the Rain that we hit our band sound. And I feel like our next album's going to be even better. And I already have songs for it.
Great. Let's talk about Grays in the Rain, though. Yeah.
The song Grays in the Rain, the song Long Winter Day, Boxes. There is a sound that is CubiZm now that, you know, within 10 seconds into a Rolling Stones song, you hear Keith Richards' way that he does rhythm, and I don't even have to hear the whole intro. It's like, there's Keith, there's his guitar. You always know a Stones song. CubiZm is getting to be like that we have a sound, and as soon as you hear it, you know that it's us. And we have a few different ways that we go, a few different things that we do. Some of our sound plays into Art's space music. You know, it's got this washy kind of electronic slow thing going on. It some of it is a little edgy and punky, and some of it, the songs are just me being me, you know.
There's a wide range on that album. You have songs like Boxes, which is really electrifying and intense and really rock. And then you have very delicate songs like Girl with the Mandolin, Boo Radley's Tree. Both of those songs are kind of more having to do with like very intellectual aspects of what you're interested in. Maybe talk about the inspiration to those two songs.
So, yeah, I am an English teacher, and I love literature, and I love art, and Boo Radley's Tree is from the point of view of Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird. Girl with Mandolin is from the point of view of the girl in Picasso's painting. The name of our band is CubiZm. So CubiZm is my favorite kind of art. And we were attempting to do with music what Picasso does with art, which is deconstruct it a little bit. You know, move the nose around. Come at something sideways. You know, that is kind of the whole, it's kind of our whole angle is that we want to take beautiful things and familiar things, familiar rock formulas, and throw edge into them.
Right.
You know.
Something is stirring in me. It may be stirring in you. On this day, all I see is gray. I don't know how to go. I don't know who to turn to.
You said early on to me that how much you hated cliches in songs, and as I've listened to great songs, I've realized none of the great songs have cliches in them, unless they've created it themselves. None of the great songs, they always find a new way to say something, and your
And
songs are like that. You know, cliches
yeah,
really turn me off as a songwriter, and I know they turn you off as well.
yeah. And the test of that is if you can anticipate what is going to come next, like to sing along with a person on a song you never heard, because it's pretty obvious that he just said the word love and somewhere the word above is going to come in. And I really try not to do that, and I try not to do exact rhymes. My songs are more about near rhymes than exact rhymes.
Hmm.
All the grays in the rain, all the shades that I see in them. Rain and them don't really rhyme, but if you put it together, it kind of does. So I do know something about language, and I've studied writing in a lot of different capacities.
And you even have a novel that was never published.
Yeah, I have some stuff that was published. I have some
I
short
know.
stories.
I've read some of your short stories. They're great.
But, you know, in teaching writing and in analyzing literature with smart kids that I teach, I'm always thinking about how masters use language. I'm always talking about how masters use language. What is he doing here with the language? Not what is this about?
Mm.
You know, what is the author doing? And the more I talk about that in my job, I feel like the more it comes out in my own writing.
Well, a lot of people have a lot of respect for your writing. You know, I've heard your songs covered. Some of them are on YouTube. You should look for Heidi Wolfson covers, but first and foremost, you should look for CubiZm. And before we get we're getting towards the end now. So before we talk a little more about how we can find your music, and once we're over this, whenever we'll be over this, where we can see you play live, let's talk about kind of your goal as a songwriter and how you'd like to be remembered.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. My goal as a songwriter is to stay alive. Just before this COVID thing hit, CubiZm had 3 Saturday nights in a row, and I was nervous about booking them because we're always under pressure to bring people out, and you don't want your shows to be too close together or who's going to come out. And we had 3 Saturday nights in a row. It was the last 2 Saturdays in February and the first Saturday in March. Yeah, I remember because the second show was Leap Day. It was February 29th.
Right.
And 3 rooms, they were small rooms, small listening rooms, but they were all packed.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is as good as it gets. You know, if 30 people are there, 30 people who are listening, that's wonderful. That is my dream come true, really. You know, when I was younger and when I knew you and going through Heidi and the Wolf and going through all that stuff, and I was sure that I was going to be a rock star and play in stadiums, which wouldn't have worked for me. That would not have worked. What I really wanted was whoever was there to listen.
Right.
And like we were playing a lot of bars back then.
Yeah, when you say it was not a work, you've often said if you had become famous, you might have been dead at 27.
I would have been dead at 27.
Yeah.
That 27 is no accident that
Right.
year. I got sober at 27. and it was a real crossroad for me. But yes, so my goal now, if I can get that back to where we were, and if all the venues don't close down,
Yeah.
and we can get some people out, just to stay alive and to keep it alive and to keep going and to be able to write new stuff and for people to keep coming. And we don't have to be more famous. It doesn't have to get any bigger than this, because this is enough, but I just want it to last for as long as possible.
Let's hope. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
So, I'm also going to ask, you mentioned kind of like your goals in a way, how you want to be remembered, and also, I guess how you want to be remembered and kind of fits into also kind of what other musical, we've talked in the past about how you're part of a musical community and what else other musicians you listen to. And so talk a little bit about that. It might be a good
Yeah,
way.
so what I've learned in life about the ego, and I've had some, everybody has their own struggles with their ego. But I became a nicer person, I think, when I started to care more about other people. And, having children certainly changes that in people. And with music, it's not just about my music. Philadelphia Area Songwriters Alliance means the world to me. And how I want to be remembered is someone who wasn't just about my own musical trip and my own musical journey, but who cares deeply about other musicians, supporting other musicians, and supporting other people's sound and really listening to them. I open up my house, my husband and I open up our house for house concerts, and I organize a lot of events. And the events have to do with celebrating other people's music. When I first came into PASA, which I guess was about 13, 14 years ago, you brought me in, I was like, oh, good. Here's some people who will listen to my songs. Everybody comes into PASA like that, thinking that they're going to get a little bit of a venue. But it quickly became about me having this community and really listening to other people's songs. And wow, that guy is so much better than he was last year. Look at what he's doing on the guitar. Really supporting people. Oh, wow, listen to that song. That's really a departure for her. Getting
Exactly.
to know people's
Yeah,
music so much. So
exactly.
the way that I want to be remembered is a songwriter among songwriters.
Right. I love that. And, we both devote time to the Philadelphia Area Songwriters Alliance. Something we're not here to plug today, but I think there are a lot of great songwriters in Philadelphia. This interview thing, if it continues, we'll certainly be interviewing others, but you're our first. And
Thank you, Rob.
certainly you're one of my first inspirations to write. I was just beginning to write when I met you. And, I think that there's a lot of great songwriters out there. And I do think that when you really pay attention, you get to know a songwriter better. You're going to be more interested in their work. You're going to be listening for things. And my hope is that people are going to now listen a lot who haven't heard you, that maybe stumble on this interview. Check out CubiZm. Check out
Please.
Graze in the Rain. Check out all on, whether it's on YouTube, or I know you're not on Spotify yet in some ways, but you're all over the place if we look for you. And I just think that we'll be hearing more from you,
There's
more from
some
CubiZm. Yeah.
there's some live video last year at the living room
Oh yeah.
on YouTube, and really I think listening to CubiZm is wonderful, and seeing us live and seeing the live video is different. We're different live than we are in the studio.
Definitely. And again, the performances are always a little different and they're always exciting. I encourage people to check out CubiZm, and I also want people to really explore, hopefully, songwriters that you don't know. If you stumble on this, you don't know Heidi or you don't know who I am, check it out. There's a lot of great music out there that people who aren't like rich and famous. So anyhow, with that said, may we all continue to write and be healthy. And I guess I will bid you adieu. I think this is a good conversation. I'm Rob Lincoln. That was Heidi Wolfson.
I recognize myself in the open market, with the show and the peace. I keep my collar closed around me against the driving wind. Parts of my past that I don't want to see, I've already melted away. Time I turned around, snow had already covered the ground. You already left town.
shadow. You go, Rob. 1, 2, 3, 4. tears had dried.
Heidi Wolfson, please. Come on.
Driving along the river drive, I give in to my moody side. I feel the rocks, I feel the water. I know it once, I am your daughter. You held me through my hardest days and rocked me slowly in your subway. Gave me a home, gave me a name, showed me how to heal my pain. Philadelphia, this is my song to you, to Philadelphia. I remain true, I remain true, I remain true. Walking on South Street the other day, I noticed that you changed your ways. Thought you weren't like you used to be. I didn't see the change in me. It's true your stores and restaurants have changed your names and window fronts, but I still feel the comfort of that street and know that it belongs to me. Philadelphia, this is my song to you, to Philadelphia. I remain true, I remain true, I remain Now I come back to your city school and feel alive in the marble halls. Feel the power in every face and every student who finds her place. And I fight like hell to find the words to give it all back to her, to cradle her in liberty and all the strength that was given to me. And Philadelphia, this is my song to you, to Philadelphia. I remain true, I remain true, I remain with every brick and cobblestone. I am home with every person in your streets. I share a history, and every day that passes here